The information provided in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are not medical professionals, and the content discussed should not be considered medical advice. Cannabis laws vary by jurisdiction, so it is essential to understand and abide the regulations in your area. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any decisions about cannabis use, especially if you have any underlying medical conditions or taking any medications. Any testimonials or personal experiences shared are individual opinions and should not be taken as substitute for professional advice. Additionally, please consume cannabis responsibly and legally, and remember to prioritize your safety and well-being at all times. This show is age restricted. This podcast is intended for those that are 21 or older in age or have a medical cannabis license. This show may contain content that is not suitable for children to watch or listen to. Furthermore, nothing is for sale or trade. Colorado CannaTopia has nothing for sale in any social media platforms. We do not sell cannabis or cannabis seeds. We do not offer advice on how to buy cannabis, and we do not offer any advice on anything illegal.
Welcome to adventure. It's out here somewhere. Let's find it together. From the snow-capped mountain peaks to the vast plains to the dusty deserts, Colorado is a land of contrast. Nestled deep in Colorado lies a secret haven, Colorado CannaTopia. Join us on a journey to discover this hidden realm where the cannabis community blazes down. A place where individuals come together to support one another and share the joys of cannabis. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just looking for a new experience, Colorado CannaTopia is the perfect destination. So, sit back, relax, and light one up as we embark on another roaring good adventure together. Let's explore the uncharted territories of cannabis and uncover the secrets together. This is Colorado CannaTopia.
We can all agree, weed should taste good. Let the world know what's on your mind with all the Weed Should Taste Good apparel from weedshouldtastegood.com. With hats, shirts, hoodies, and all sorts of awesome gear to fit your style, Weed Should Taste Good also has a list of seeds so you can grow your own great tasting weed. Visit weedshouldtastegood.com. That's www.weedshouldtastegood.com. What's up, Colorado CannaTopians? Agent Jim here for another wild episode in the Colorado CannaTopia wilderness. Today we got something real special for you. We have an interview with Jayson Hadley from Filter with Lighthouse World Solutions. This is a guy that has a lot of knowledge within the realm of bacteria, within the realm of fungi, and all of those microorganisms, specifically on how to keep your rooms clean and making sure you stay safe and preventing any type of contamination within your grow. So, without further ado, please welcome Jayson Hadley. Why don't you introduce yourself for us and give our viewers a little bit of information about what you do and what you want to talk about here.
Sure. Okay, so my name's Jayson Hadley. I'm with Filter. We're owned by Lighthouse Worldwide Solutions. We're a company that's like a supplier of clean room monitoring equipment for most of our business. We work with like Pfizer, Moderna, NASA, those types of like bunny suit environments. And when cannabis started to become a regulated production, we saw the writing on the wall of going like, listen, growers know how to grow fire. They know how to grow weight. They know how to grow flavor. They know how to grow bag appeal. But like getting it across the finish line, molds have always been a problem in cannabis, right? But and we've always known the dangers of it. But the extent of it was pretty much like spray the bottom of your shoes and don't let other growers in your spot.
Yeah.
Was for the most part, people understood mold, but they didn't understand. It was like at the equivalent of people thinking that like when you sneezed, demons entered you and that's how you got sick, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we kind of had like this base level knowledge. Well, the thing is like food and pharmaceutical manufacturing, like those guys have already figured all that out. They have the entire roadmap. They have all the skill sets. They have all the regulations and all those things. Now, I'm not saying you need to like swing up to that level, but let me put it this way. They're a really good crossover into cleaner growing compared to like taking from agronomy and like agriculture practices where because like in agriculture, you're growing a cucumber or you're growing a tomato and those are fruits with a skin, right? And so those are washable. Whereas like what cannabis is growing, like all the money makers on the outside of the plant.
Yeah.
And it's able to capture things that are continually floating in your air. And so I work for Filter, which specializes in removing like airborne particles. That's what we call it in clean room. I came from the growing side, but they hired me because they're like, listen, we want to get into regulated cannabis. Cannabis, we know clean rooms. Peanut butter and the chocolate mixed together and it came out great, right?
Sure.
And right. So what my day looks like, I'm kind of on a day-to-day, is that like I'm chilling out stress growers who are running into problems and don't know where they're coming from, how they got in, how it's moving about the facility. So there's a lot of magic boxes out there, that I sell against. And what I mean by like a magic box is it's claiming to kill. And they don't really offer you anything other than just put our device in and all your problems will go away. At Filter and at Lighthouse, we're like really well aware of the fact that our air filtration is like sort of one cog in the machinery of microbe control, like that system, right? So again, it's like, coming down to like things like, what's your building situation look like, or what's the arrangement of your tent if you're a home grower, like what kind of like diagnostic equipment do you have that's able to tell you have a problem before you really experience a problem? And, what kind of like cultural practices can you do on a day-to-day basis, like in order to be cleaner? You know what I mean? Like, if I can share some stuff with you, I just wanted to show you something that I think is common at every stage of grow. And that is this here. This is a chart of like missed hand washing. So what they did was they do a study, right, where they have people wash their hands and then they swab them and look at it under a microscope, and they determined that the darker areas on the human hand are the areas that are often missed the most in like routine hand washing. So I know, right? And I did the same thing when I saw it.
Interesting.
And, I mean, seriously, the average hand has, on average, 10,000 microbes per square inch. And some of those are supposed to be there because they're like our own natural bioflora, if you will, like our own, skin system. Some of those are supposed to be there. Many of them are not. They're picked up from doorknobs, and they're picked up when you scratch your head and then pick up your scissors and then pick your scissors up again and then go touch a plant. And so, like you go to any restaurant and you see like there's a sticker on the window that says like, everyone must wash their hands, or at least the employees have to, right? It doesn't really tell you how to wash your hands and like what you're trying to achieve. And even though it's really basic, and we've been taught to wash our hands since we were 3 years old, you can never be too diligent. And this is sort of one of those things that can show you, this is one of those maps that can show you like what actually oftentimes gets missed. So,
okay.
So it's a lot of, I do a lot of teaching, which is great. And I love sharing this gospel because I'm never going to be a better grower than most of the growers out there, but I do know a lot about one part of the grow.
Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I really like that aspect where when you use your product, essentially you're not just getting a product, but you are also getting a team that's there looking after your grow, essentially. Yeah,
I think it really helps to be like service oriented. I mean, if I've learned a lot in this industry, if I've learned anything, it's growers like the Sinatra treatment, and who doesn't in their day-to-day life? Oh, Mr. Sinatra, your usual table, sir. Are you still three olives in your martini? Okay, we'll have somebody take your Coke. They want that. I get it, and I love it, and I'm here for it. Because when I was growing, I wanted the same treatment. You know what I mean? I thought, it's like a lot of growers in the legacy days, right? They were big fish in their pond. I mean, like when I was growing, I had a lot of people that depended on me for employment, like trimmers and section workers and stuff like that. And, and you're growing something that turns into cash, like immediately,
Yeah.
So that's like, I mean, it's a fun industry to be in. And again, it's like taking a moment like to really kind of focus in on something that's really critical to the grow process that not a lot of growers know about. It's like, it makes me interesting at cocktail parties. I'll say that for sure. Right.
What kinds of things are you looking at specifically when you're trying to filter out a room?
Well, all right. So let's talk about kind of overall contamination risks, right? We'll do like a risk assessment of an average room. So let's say for hypotheticals, we're growing in a small warehouse, right? Where we maybe have like 2 flower rooms, a veg room, a dry area. I've worked in a place where the trim room was the flower room, that type of thing. It was also the dry room, those kind of places, which is, again, it's like we had to work with what we had. This industry is all about, end gaming the system and MacGyvering your way out of solutions. Right? So then it comes down to like some of those daily practices in a facility. So some things I recommend are like, for instance, every room has its own broom. You have a broom for flower 1, flower 2. You have its own broom in veg, a broom in the nursery area, a broom in the trim room, a broom for the hallway. I know it sounds I'm going crazy on brooms. Brooms are not that expensive in the grandest scheme of stuff you're going to be spending on your grow, right?
Yeah.
And the idea behind that is that you're not crossing rooms with a tool that's been in another room. So, and as far as the broom itself, like we want to get away from like organic fibers and stuff like that in general. We want to keep anything. The only thing we want that's organic in the room ideally is the plant, right? So, that said, like, we want like synthetic brooms, right? So like in pharma, just to give you some context, in pharma manufacturing, when they build out facilities, they have 3 things that are super important. That the materials and tools and equipment are non-porous, right? So like avoiding wood in a cannabis space, non-shedding. So things that are like breaking particles off, like, sometimes certain medias will like kind of send things into the air. and non-porous, non-shedding, and synthetic, like plastics, PVCs, stuff like that. So as I was saying, like, we want to switch to like synthetic material brooms. All the better if like every room had its own tools and you were able to color code those tools. And so that way, like flower 1 is the red room and flower 2 is the blue room, and you see a blue tool in the red room, you automatically can tell that that's a cross-contamination hazard and you get it out of it.
Would you
right?
would you go as far as to have like employees essentially wear different uniforms for each room?
Yeah, we could definitely talk about that. So in the pharma world, they would call it gowning, is the technical term. And there's a number of ways you could do it. So like, I mean, at like the craft gardener, home grower, like, medicinal scale caregiver level, I might suggest, changing your clothes before you go into a work area. Because, here's the thing, like, excuse me, mold is everywhere. It's in our air, it's on our surfaces, it's everywhere. In the normal world, we deal with it all day long, no problem, short of like those with like immunocompromised systems or something like that. But when you get closer to the plants, you want to just make an attempt to create as many barriers between yourself and the plant as possible. So, there's a lot of argument back and forth around like, would somebody wear a Tyvek suit in there? Tyveks are expensive and you're throwing they're wasteful, right?
Yeah, you don't want like a diving suit for every room. That would be ridiculous.
Right.
A whole breathing apparatus and...
Right, exactly. Like, I mean, you know what I might do? Like, I mean, so typically if there's, the high level is they use Tyvek suits, sometimes scrubs or like coveralls, like dedicated facility wear, lab coats, and definitely booties. I personally, like, in the commercial facilities when I go visit them and everybody's in scrubs, I'm like, listen, this is cool that you guys are getting out of your street clothes and getting into something else. But the material that your scrubs are made out of is still picking up problems that are already in the facility and traveling around.
Yeah.
So, what I might suggest to a commercial garden is like, okay, scrubs to get you out of your street clothes and booties to get you your street shoes covered, or dedicated facility Crocs or something like that. And then a lab coat with like an antimicrobial property embedded in the fabric.
Okay.
Because then like mold spores, like either, depending on how it works, either they can't stick to you, like they won't deposit on the fiber, or there's a chemical in the fiber that when it lands on the fibers, on the cloth of the textile, it'll like leach a poison up into the microbe that will kill it.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's kind of how a lot of those work. But that's the thing is, it's like, if you're going into room A or room 1 and then you're going into room 2, like you're effectively carrying everything from 1 into 2.
Right.
So if you were at least able to keep a lab coat outside of each one that's dedicated to those rooms, and you take it off when you come out of the room, you go back and you go into room 2, you put on that lab coat, go in. It at least gives you an opportunity to like try to prevent carrying things over. I say this would be like kind of a controversial topic and a hot take. But in addition to like hairnets, in the commercial scale, they wear hairnets and beard nets, right? That's just a thing.
Sure.
But hot take here, because I know where cannabis is. It's a skeptical demographic of folk, Honestly, you're going to hate me to say this, but like masks would be super helpful if you have like multiple cannabis environments that you're going into within a single facility.
Interesting.
The reason I say that, the reason I say that is this, is like, forget about all the COVID conspiracy craziness, okay? Forget about all that for a second. Mold spores are far larger than a virus. So, like a mold spore, to put it into perspective here, I'll open this up and I'll share it with you. A mold spore is typically at about 1 micron and larger. This chart should be extended down, because I can tell you Aspergillus fumigatus is 2 to 3 microns, so I should actually revise this. Oopsies. But my point being is that 10 microns, you can't see that with the naked eye, right?
Yeah.
You can call me a liar for 8 microns. I'll take it. But, that said, what happens is we inhale particles in the air all the time, like all day, every day, can't stop, won't stop, right? Sometimes those particles get lodged into our bronchial tract, right? And so what ends up happening is they become like lodged in our mucus and stuff like that. And then like, let's say you go out, like you're working in room 1, you're inhaling everything. You go out, take lunch, smoke a bowl, come back in. You kind of got toker's cough as you're coming back in. You go into room 2. You're like, you could potentially dislodge something that you inhaled in room 1.
Oh, okay.
Or even in your own living room, right? Because like I said, we're surrounded by these things.
Yeah.
And how do I know the question becomes, how do I know we're surrounded by these things? And I'm about to show you. So we sell, in addition to air particle filtration, it's also helpful to know, like, to be able to see the particles in your airspace. So we sell a couple of other items as well. This is not a commercial, but I just want to kind of show you, like, the level of, like, depth. Like, remember when everybody would, like, discover VPD? And they're like, oh, crap, man, you mean I just go like this and just go like this and keep my room here and I'm good? And we're like, yeah, right? That was a major discovery for growers, right? In order to create stress events, force nutrient uptake, what have you. Then everybody like discovered PAR, right? And now you're getting PAR maps from all your lighting suppliers, and you're looking at a map and you're figuring out how to overlay the throw of each light to maximize the PAR on the edges. And now all of a sudden you're like this light scientist, right? Well, what if I could show you the volume of particles in a space?
Oh, wow.
So this is called a particle counter. This is a handheld version. They actually make them a little bit bigger, and they also make them as systems that like wire the information back to a central computer in a pharma facility. And so what this is measuring is, where's my other side? 10 microns, 5 microns, 2.5 microns, 1 micron, 0.5 and 0.3. 0.5, is like ultra fine dust. Like that's stuff that like is not going to affect your plants. Growers care about 1 micron and larger. So what it's going to do is it's going to take air in through this inlet. It's going to run it past a laser, and it's going to size it, and it's going to count it. So watch this. Where's my button? Here's my button. So you can see it starting. It's counting.
Oh, wow.
It is pulling. Yeah. So it is pulling. So this is giving growers the ability to see those microscopic mold spores in their space. And so it's like really eye-opening, from that standpoint. But I want to actually show it to you a little bit better here, because I'm trying to configure, like I said, I did a particle demo for a guy that actually is in a clean room. And so I was like, differential, normalized manual. Okay, that's all good. Yeah, no, this is cool. But point being is that you can actually see the particles in your space, right? So then here's another device. Now, for the commercial scale, totally like should be in the budget. Home growers, they do make less expensive versions of what we do. I mean, obviously, as you go down in price, you probably go down in quality.
Yeah.
But the other thing that is used in order to see the problems in your air is this device called a air sampler.
Okay.
Let me let the splash screen fall. Right. So what this is doing is this is able to accommodate a petri dish. Right. You put a petri dish in here. Have a petri dish handy. Hey, what do you know? I have a petri dish handy. Check this out. Excuse me. So this is a petri dish, right?
Yeah.
And so what I can do is I can, and it comes sealed and sterile, right? And I can tear this open, and I can pull this out. And if you notice on the sampling head, there's like a bunch of like little holes right there.
Yeah.
Right? So what I would do then is I would take a petri dish, I would put it in the top here, take the cover off, and put the sampling head back on, right so. And then I just simply hit start. And what it's doing is it's taking a very specific and measured amount of air into the device and impacting that air onto the petri dish so that you have consistency of your air sampling. So you can do like apples to apples comparison. You took 500 liters of air for 5 minutes, and this is what it caught, right? So I'll stop it here. And I'm not going to do a full 5-minute sample, but you can take the Petri dish off, and I believe you can see into the camera here. Let me see. I see a bunch of little divots.
Yeah.
See all those, right? Those little divots. So those are matching the little holes in the sampling head, and it's depositing the mold spores into those areas, so it's easy to culture them out, like in a laboratory.
Wow. So,
right. And so
does that have like an agar in it? So it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does. And so you're like, okay, so what is this? What would this data look like? I can show you this data. Like, let's see here. Let me go to a sample test here. I think you're going to find this information like wildly fascinating. Let me see here. Where's my sample reports? There we go. And let me do this one. And let me do this one. Okay, so here I'm going to share a screen here. And so like particle counts, right? All right, so this is what a particle count report looks like. So let me see if I can get it full screen here for you. And I can blow this up a little bit. View, zoom, and we'll do 200%. See if that does. Well, that's too big. Zoom. Let's do 150. Right? Okay. There we go. All right. So this is a report. So like what I did was I used this device and I took like 3 1-minute samples in each area. And so what I did was like, this is the 10 microns. So I did 3 tests in the gowning area down here, like as you walk in the front door. I did 3 tests in their trim room, which was right by the front door, 3 tests in their dry room, and then their hallway, their veg room on the left side, the veg room on the right side. I did an extraction area. I protect the names to protect the innocent. These guys have a rad source. Another topic for another time. Don't judge. But and then we took some samples in like their post-production and flower areas. But like, here was the thing that like, what was interesting was the gowning area, which is right by the front doors, like has this huge, vast number of particles compared to the flower area. And you can really see where they spent the money on like HVAC filtration and making sure to remove particles from the space.
Yeah.
So this is right? So for instance, this is their 5 microns, right? And let me just see if I could just stretch it out. Again, 3 tests. This is all the 3 tests in the gowning, trim, dry, hallway. But here's the thing that you can glean from this information is that like, you can see the levels are huge in the hallway for 5 microns, but the veg room and the flower room are low. So yes, we established that their HVAC is doing its due, right? We're down with that. But the other side of it is that their hallway is a threat to their flower room and their veg room.
Yeah.
So they would be really well served to get the particles out of the hallway so that when you're opening the veg and flower room doors, you're not pulling air particles in from the hallway.
Certainly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, okay, well, we have this huge proliferation of 5 micron particles. What are these particles? What are they? Are they dust? Are they mold spores? Are they, a variety, some combination of the two? So it turns out in this same facility, while I was doing these particle counts, I was collecting lab data as well. So I'll share this. So from this test with this hallway, I was able to get the following information. So this is a lab report that I use a laboratory called IMS Laboratory in Commerce Township, Michigan. They're lovely people. And they send this laboratory report. As you can see, I redact the names, right? But like, let's go to what was found in the hallway, right? I did a swab sample on their pot and had a bunch of white stuff growing on the outside of a fabric pot.
Ooh. Full
on Fusarium. Just boom. And that TNTC stands for too numerous to count.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I took an air sample in the trim room. So here's the hallway. So the hallway, we discovered Aspergillus niger amongst those particles. We discovered Aspergillus alelucis or whatever. I had to look that up. I didn't know. Mucor, 2 kinds of penicillium. I mean, like this. So this was what is able. Like you walk through an average like facility hallway, and you're just seeing the opposite end of the room. But if you could see down to this level, like your vision would look like TV static. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just found this stuff sort of interesting to be able to show growers that there is a way to be able to detect and discover microbe problems, so you don't come into the room one morning and see grossness all over the plant. You could have caught that earlier.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely.
Right? So, you know, like that said, I'm also like a huge fan of you know, teaching things, right? So like I totally love, you know, being able to share this sort of stuff. I'm trying to find I do like a presentation that basically covers like sort of high level microbe control. And here, I'll share it here for a second, and just so you can kind of get a feel. But I mean, I am down to answer questions for growers. You know what I mean? Is what it comes down to ultimately, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so
if any viewers have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments for us, and we'll be sure to try to answer them as best as we can for you.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, like I said, you know, like, I mean, so to give you an idea, like this is, here, I'll just maximize this. Like the human eye can only see down to like 35, 40, 45 microns. And I'm catching problems that are 5 microns. You know what I mean? That are like 7, 9 times, almost 10 times smaller, right? Like, you want to see something crazy? Like this is the like a topographical map of the ridges of your fingerprint.
Oh, wow.
And so what all the colors are showing is the depth between the valleys of your fingerprint. And those are like 100, 150 microns deep.
Oof.
Like, you know, I mean, you know, so, or, you know, and like this side, this one on the right here is like I know, isn't it? Yeah. Get high, look at your hand. Dude, I bought one of these little like scopes, you know, one of these scopes here.
Yeah.
And I will just stare at my hand and I'll go, what is that particle? I'm like, what is it? Like, you know, you can get these on Amazon, but I wouldn't trust them for like, you know, legal in court, so to speak, but they're fun to play with. And you can look at the undersides of your leaves and inspect for like spider mite eggs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Without
having to have like a high powered microscope. But no, what was I showing you was, so as far as like all the air in the space, like we do care about that. We care about dust, we care about mold spores, right? Because this right here is a dust particle, and a dust particle can harbor bacteria, it can harbor virus. There was research that showed that wildfire ash actually had COVID on it. It was crazy. But anyway,
wow.
But then again, things can ride on other things.
Yeah.
Right? So like this photo on the right here is ragweed pollen. The green right here is ragweed pollen. And these are powdery mildew spores that are attached to ragweed pollen.
Okay.
So things can ride on things that can ride on things, right?
Yeah.
And I say that specifically because like bugs, you know, most of the, this is kind of a fun one. Most of the, you know, growers are concerned about bugs, right? Spider mites, thrips, you know, like root aphids, all that sort of stuff, right? Fungus gnats, right? My jurisdiction is the stuff that rides on the back of the stuff that IPM managers care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So this is like, for instance, a picture of an ant covered in mold fuzz and a termite that has mold spores growing out of it, and a ladybug with a spore shell with spores on its back, and then this bottom one here is like actually like mold growing out of the antenna of a locust.
Oh man.
Right. So, but you know, I mean, like to see it as it does its due is like super important, right? So, for instance, like there's a couple things that are happening when mold hits your plant, right? So this is what's happening above the surface. So this is Aspergillus niger, and you can see it kind of looks like a palm tree. And then when the wind hits it or air movement, it bumps apart and releases all these spores that then fly into the air. And, you know, in your garden, in your home grow, in your tent, in your facility, you got what? Air movement. You got a lot of air movement, right?
All the time, yeah.
So, right. So those spores are able to just simply move about inside an enclosed space, and eventually they make their way onto like hitting the sticky icky of the plant, you know? So then there's what's going on below the surface. So below the surface, this is showing, okay, so the mold spore, it hits the air, it lands, right? And then it sends out a probe, right? It sends out a probe right here. And this probe is looking for like an open wound. It's looking for a stoma, in this case, it found. And then once it finds that, below the surface, it sends out another probe to break through the plant's skin layer, its cuticle layer.
Mm-hmm.
And like it emits an enzyme that's able to burn through that. And then from there, it sends in yet another probe. And what this is doing is it's sucking nutrients from the plant.
Okay.
And at the same time, though, it's also exuding something that is trying to stunt the plant's immune response.
Interesting.
And so, I know, right? So imagine like a bunch of these spores are landing and they're reproducing and they're creating like this fungal mat, and all these different points along this mold's root system are doing, this very thing, poking through the surface. So it becomes sort of a race of like, how fast can the plant sacrifice its own cells around the infection in order to starve off the infection before the mold is able to stunt its immune response to just keep on pushing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
That's interesting.
Sorry.
That's super interesting stuff, though. Like, it can really be from one extreme to the other, so it's definitely an important subject. I can see the importance in it all.
Yeah, I mean, like, I consult with a lot of clients around, like, their cleaning practices, right? So it's not just like, I get a lot of people that are like, oh, just use this product. But like, here's the thing, like, if you don't read your labels, you don't call the manufacturer with your questions, and you're going to just like, my buddy says you should do this, your buddy's probably a cool dude. Don't get me wrong. I'll probably have a beer with that guy. But at the same time, like, sometimes there's some nuances in like the way you clean and the way you fight microbes that are not always like kind of one-to-one for every facility, or not always one-to-one for the using of every cleanser. Like, for instance, a lot of growers are surprised to find out that 70% isopropyl is actually more effective against microbes than 90%. Right? I mean, you would think like, okay, 90% intuitively, it sounds like it'd be more effective. No, what that means is it's only 10% water. So it tends to evaporate quicker. So would I use 90% to like clean my dab rig and my bong and my pipe and all that? All day, right? 70% is something that's going to now have 30% water. And so that means it'll take longer to evaporate, which means it has more what's called contact time on the surface that you're trying to clean.
Yeah.
So, like, you'd be surprised. A lot of people have never seen what a microbe does to a pathogen, right? So, like, I show my growers this. I'm like, so you're wondering, okay, I use bleach. What does bleach actually do? It makes it smell clean, makes it look clean. Those are not very scientific measurements. I can pour a bottle of bleach in the middle of a grow tent and you tell me it smells clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I haven't scrubbed a thing. But so what's happening? So all of these different like cleansers and stuff like bleach, isopropyl, parasitic acid, hypochlorous acid, sodium dioxide, all these different formulations are designed to attack a microbe in different ways. So sometimes what happens is like it'll eat around the exterior of the plant, of the microbe. Sometimes it'll disrupt its replicating ability. Sometimes it'll disrupt its ability to communicate, like the different parts to communicate with each other. So they all do like just deliciously evil things to microbes, right?
Mm.
But it's like when you see it, it's far more interesting. So this is a blasphemia, I believe it's called. So they apply the bleach, and the bleach immediately eats the outside.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah, it immediately eats away. Like, watch. I mean, here, we'll watch it again. Like, so here it is. They apply the bleach, and then blam, and then blah, all of its insides just come out, and it just dissolves away.
Wow.
That's what's happening at this little teeny tiny scale.
Huh.
So it, like, again, so now next time you like do all of your cleaning, you're just going to be like, I am the Lord of War, you know, like, and just take out everything and just be like, you know, you're going to understand what you're doing, and it's going to make it, you know, hopefully a little bit more interesting and feel a lot less like bitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
No, nobody likes clean.
Yeah. Well,
you know, right?
It depends who you are.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, like, by and large, like, you know, a lot of like entry level work in facilities is like mopping, sweeping, and cleaning. You know, right? And you're putting that in the hands of the least trained and the least paid on the staff. So how much you think you're going to get out of them?
Right. So where do you think the future of this technology is going to end up going?
Well, I think the future of the technology is going to go towards being able to spot these types of microbe issues in real time. Like, I'll give you a great example. Like, you know, there's companies that have like mobile tissue culturing labs that are like encased in a suitcase, right? And it has everything you need, and you flip it up and it's got all your lights and your workspace and your chemicals, and all you have to do is just follow the instructions and you can actually tissue culture your own stuff. You don't have to like send it to a laboratory for $1,500 to $10,000 to try to back up your genetics, or you know, try to like, you know, hold on to your favorite cuts. You know what I mean? Now you can bring that stuff. They brought the lab to you. So I think that number one, the future is going to be empowering growers to better understand this particular pain point. Because you could sell 50,000 pounds, or you can grow 50,000 pounds of amazing fire, but if you can't get it to pass a test, you can't sell it. It's just a cool trick. It's not a business model. Likewise, I mean, if you're at the caregiver level or the hobby level, you want to be able to grow the cleanest possible. So, I mean, compared to what we've smoked when we were younger, you know, like times have changed. Like we've gotten more serious about it, you know. We now know how bad Eagle 20 is. You know, I sprayed Eagle 20. I didn't know what I was doing, you know. Like I didn't realize the ramifications. So I think the knowledge level of that side is going to continue to grow. And what I want to see is a lot more of these types of devices being able to be more accessible to growers at all levels of the game, and to be able to spot their problems in the air or on a surface or in their water before they walk in one morning and just see like destruction.
All right.
Fuzzy destruction.
Do you think we'll get to the point where we're like Jetsons level and you just walk into a room and it just sucks everything off of you like in the movies?
No, I don't think it's. I think we're still going to have to manually put on and take off of our facility garb. I would say this though: there may be some sort of device, rather, that like you walk in spread eagle and it just like encases you in plastic and like leaves you breathing holes and cuts it out along the way, and then you're able to kind of function. Yeah, you know, I mean. It's so funny too, because you know, like a lot of the growers of like that came from the legacy market, they're kind of like, man, you're taking the soul out of this, and it's like, maybe, but I'm also trying to help you grow something that like you're so concerned about terpene profile, and you're so concerned about nose, and you're so concerned about weight. Like, it's like, why would you have this Ferrari and then put 87 octane in it? You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's completely related, like, especially with all these different microns coming in contact with all these different heads, like, especially if you're breaking it down into, like, hash, all this stuff becomes super important and really goes down into flavor. We all know when it comes to hash, the more contaminants that you have, the less, you know, the less flavorful it's going to be, the less clean it's going to be. There's going to be less quality to it in general. So I feel like it, when you break it down in that perspective, it's all very related.
Right. I mean, because here's the thing, like, I mean, it's sort of a new muscle that growers are going to have to learn how to flex eventually. So all I'm trying to say is that, like, it's in your interest to create cleaner product for all parties concerned, and even for yourself, you know? As well as the fact that, like, you want to be able to detect your problems ahead of time. because it's a lot easier to deal with them when they're just in your air compared to when you see them growing on the plants, and now you're having to sacrifice, plants and stuff. And then on top of that, here's the funny thing that can happen. This was something so interesting that Kevin Jodry said. Is it Kevin Jodry? The guy at, oh God, what's the name? I can't remember the name of the facility that's in like Northern California, but he said something interesting around like hash and like all the concentrates out there. He said, here's the thing about this is that you could potentially, so let's say you pop hot for something on the flower and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to just like blow it down into oil or whatever, right? But then the oil can then test hot for something that it didn't test hot for at the flower phase, which would then be an indicator that you have like dirty mother genetic.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying? Because it found something that was different that wasn't on the flower. So, I mean, yeah, it sounds like kind of space agey, but at the same time, I think that this can also be a level of detective work that will help growers discover their problems quicker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you were able to just like put a sensor in a room and go, yeah, you know what? Something is a little off here. Like I give you an example, like one of the ways I use this device with growers is not just necessarily like measuring the volume of particles in the room, but something interesting here. Let me get a little bit of a reading going here for a second. And here, I'm going to do this. So if you notice here on this readout here,
yeah,
your 0.3s are much higher than your 0.5s. Hold on a second. Let me get the angle right here. Come on, angle. There we go. Your 0.3s are higher than your volume of 0.5s. Your 1s are lower than your 0.5s. Your 2.5s are lower than your 1s. What this means is that like heavier particles fall out of the space faster, right?
Okay.
But if you're seeing more 2.5 micron particles than 1 micron particles, that's outside of that normal air distribution, and that can be an indicator that you have a particle problem brewing. So you're not supposed to have more, you're supposed to have less, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, and so then that's where you take out the air sampler, because it's like, is it drywall, like negatively pressured, flowing in from the cracks of the rooms? Is it potentially a mold outbreak because those mold spores are being pushed into the air environment? So on one hand, yeah, I mean, it's like about measuring particle pressure, but it's also, about detecting problems, like I said, before you see them on the plants. So that's where, I think the future is going to be like taking a look at industries that know more about the problem than we do in cannabis.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, and it just seems like more the reason just that, I'll put it this way, if I was the manager of a big corporation, I'd be hiring you just for all this, because that's a lot of stuff to really be looking out for all on your own, and really know, like you were just pointing out little indifferences within your statistics that allow you to understand, what's really going on within the environment without even actually being there. That's like some doctor type of stuff, and like, right. I feel like it
gets a little Star Trek-y, yeah.
I feel like you're definitely, you definitely providing a service for, that type of situation for sure.
Yeah, and not only that, but like also helping growers like be aware of their own risks, right? Yeah. So like I was talking to a guy that I was networking with at Cannabis Science Conference, and he said something interesting. He was like, growers don't realize that they also plant their own problems. You know what I mean? With regards to like pests and pathogens and stuff like that. Like sometimes we just in the garden do things that unfortunately, come with inherent risks. So I'll give you a great example. There people are going to be loyal to soil, and they're going to be loyal to, cocoa, koi, or whatever their media of choice is. But like soil is interesting in that it has 40,000 different species of microbes in it, like per tablespoon.
Dang.
Yeah, exactly. Different species. Now, some of them are beneficial, some of them are pathogenic. Like if you really wanted to know, you could send a soil sample to a lab and they could grow it out and they could tell you, but that costs money, what have you. My point in saying all of that is that if it comes with inherent threats, or risks, let's just say that, and you're bringing it into your space, it's okay to operate with like a known and acceptable level of risk. You just have to figure out ways around it so that it minimizes the damage. So one thing that happens with soil is like when you're transplanting, you're taking big scoops of it and you're putting it into a pot and you're moving transplants into it and what have you, and you're left with all this like soil all over the floor, right? It gets into the cracks, it gets into the corners where the wall meets the floor, it gets into all these places. The term would be material handling. So like the material handling of your soil can sometimes create problems because those microbes are now within the facility. So if you're going to grow in soil, cool, more power to you. But, you want to control the dusts, you want to control the spillage, you probably want to do it over a tarped area and then be able to close up the tarp and take it outside and clean it off. And then, disinfect the floor afterwards with bleach or, hypochlorous acid or whatever your choice of cleanliness disinfectant is. And that's another thing too, not for nothing, but the actual difference between, like when I go into facilities, I hear people use the terms disinfected, sterile, clean, sanitized. They're used interchangeably. And, so I was going to share this with you. I thought this would be kind of an interesting thing, is that there actually is a specific difference. So for instance, there's clean versus clean, right? So understanding levels of clean. So cleaning is just simply the removal of like surface dirt, right? Sanitizing is really more geared towards bacteria. That's sort of the level that like restaurants and food manufacturing. So I was just simply explaining that like, the terms sterile and disinfectant and sanitizer, they're oftentimes used interchangeably, but they actually have very specific meanings. And so like, as I was saying, like clean is just sort of removing surface dirt, right? Cool. Sanitizing is about getting rid of bacteria. Disinfecting is about killing mold spores. And then you get all the way over to sterile. And sterile has a very specific meaning. It's like no microbes, no residual biofilms, none of that. Completely, absolutely 100% free. It's a very like tough standard to meet because it usually requires either like a wildly caustic chemical or extreme amounts of heat. So and then the other thing too when it comes to cleaning is you kind of have cleaning and disinfecting, like when you're resetting a space, it's kind of a two-step process at a high level because you do need to clean all the dirt off. If you just like apply bleach and you're not getting the surface dirts and the surface biofilms and stuff like that, those dirts can actually protect mold and bacteria. It kind of creates a protective layer over it. And the last thing you want to do is restart a new process, do a room reset with like a problem already in there. You want to give your plants the best possible start at the beginning of the cycle. So I always advise like do a surface cleaning of dirt and then go in with something that's more of a spray mechanism or a foaming mechanism or something like that you don't have to put as much work into, like what they call mechanical action, the scrubbing, right?
Yeah.
And also, the other thing too is like when you're cleaning things, like I would make sure to like overlap the strokes, you know what I mean? Like you overlap like by about 20-30% when you clean something, rather than sort of spray, wipe, like that circular motion. Growers, you probably want to be a little bit more organized in your cleaning and clean top to bottom or back to front, and you want to overlap those strokes because it'll just help you get better coverage on your surfaces. So, and all this stuff, I personally find it fascinating. I know growers are kind of feel overwhelmed about it, but that's why I have one of these, man.
Oh yeah.
Call me.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's why I'm available on social media. If you're not following Dyslexic Stoner 402, get on it, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll wait. Hold on, we'll wait.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going to say that it's a lot of information to uptake all at once, and I feel like you've definitely provided a lot of information for even the basic home grower for sure.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, here, just to kind of give you like a quick little smattering of sampling of kind of what I do here. Hold on a second. Let me go to my homepage here. I'll actually do a little quick just tour of the Dyslexic Stoner 402 page for those of you at home that are curious. So this is what I do, right? Dyslexic Stoner 402. So all of these posts, like, okay, so I pin the products up at the top because I do sell stuff for a living. That's what I do, right? But, we start to go into like, what does your media look like under a microscope? That's clear. Notice all those little holes and divots and stuff like that? That's like wildly easy for mold spores to collect in and transport in, like when you're stilling it open, right? Or like, hey, here's what peat looks like under a microscope, right? This is soil with some nematodes on it.
So what type of media would you recommend then?
I'm always going to go like suggest something inert just to remove like the microbe factor. But I get it. There's lots of growers that are like, no, I like my brew teas and I like, my trichodermas and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I get it, and you can grow and still be successful. You just have to account for those types of risks, So every now and again, I like to kind of throw in a little off-color humor, right? When post-harvest product goes into a tote bin, doesn't have a plastic liner, right? Ha ha ha. Just try to make it a little bit more accessible to my growers. I mean, because I'm in the stuff that's not very exciting to talk about business, So, but it also comes with like insights, like right, like never squirt a hose directly into a drain. Never. You're gonna shoot stuff out of there. So
yeah.
So these posts, I try to break it. My point is, I try to break it down into like bite-sized chunks that I post every day. But again, it's like, for instance, this is like I was talking about microbes attaching to plants. This is powdery mildew on a trichome. And that's powdery mildew on the surface of the plant. That white fuzz you see on your plant? That is what that looks like at its scale. And this is the same thing that it's doing where it's sending out a probe in order to break through the cuticle of the plant. That's the probe.
Wow.
Like I know, right? And like, so this is like kind of what's going on at this level. And, I find that it's really important to learn, because if you can understand how it, what it does and how it behaves and how it travels and what allows it to thrive, you just get a lot less stressful around how to solve your problem, because you start to know what your options are.
You definitely provided a ton of information to all our viewers, and there's just a lot to eat up here, maybe a lot to chew all at once. And you were saying we could find you on Instagram. Is there any other places we could find you to maybe look at the information at our own leisure? Are you on YouTube or any other social media locations?
You know what the problem is I'm old. So like, I'm not a big social media guy, but I keep it at Instagram because I tend to find that that's where a lot of the growers are at.
Okay.
I'm actually, if you do go to the Filter Science YouTube page, which is FILTR Filter Science, and maybe we put a link to this somewhere in the post or something. Sure. I actually did this microbe control, the slides that you saw from like the microbe control lecture. I have those available on the YouTube page, as well as I did a webinar on like building and crafting SOPs.
Okay.
And like how to do them the way that other industries do them.
Yeah.
That way, and there's some, making sure your language is direct, and and I can also send a template out if any of your viewers like have questions. I mean, dude, I have like cleaning protocols. I have diagrams like this that you saw. I have studies like white papers on cleaning and disinfection. Like I tell you, like I said, if you can't reset the room, properly, you're going to be growing over the same problem. So I want to be full service, and I'm a big fan of like help everybody. And I say the home growers of today are the cultivation directors of tomorrow.
Right on. Well, do you have any other things that you would like to let the viewers know or get any information out there? Or
Well, if you're interested in knowing more about Filter, I always recommend you visit www.filterscience.com, FILTR science.com. You can always, again, reach me out through the Instagram page. And, I just want to be a resource for you, for your network, and, ultimately create a model of like cleaner growing that isn't just necessarily focused on, cutting corners to generate profits. It can be done. It can be learned. This has already been figured out. You're not reinventing a wheel. You just need to know a guy that knows this kind of information.
Right. Well, I was super excited to have you on here. We'll have to have you on here again for sure. You definitely provided a lot of great information.
Yes, we've only scratched the surface in our time together today.
Oh, for sure. The bigger things that really come to mind is like a lot of the tools you were using implicate, different molecules, and so I just wonder how it could be used or implemented in different ways that are not necessarily what you were using them for, you know what I mean, and maybe be used for other things. And because it's a tool that I've never seen before, so my mind kind of just goes over all kinds of different possibilities, but like that type of thing is something that really comes to mind, and so I'm sure I'll have all kinds of different questions for you in the future for sure.
Please hit me up. I am very easily reachable.
All right. Well, we'll be sure to hit you up. If viewers have any questions, like I said, be sure to let us know in the comments or hit him up directly with the areas that he provided us. And we'll be sure to put those in the comments as well so that you can easily access them and find them.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you. And I hope everybody has a great night. All right, guys, that was our interview with Jayson Hadley. I really hope you retained a lot of information from this episode. I know that there was a lot going on, and if you need to, feel free to come back and rewatch this episode as many times as you would like. In addition to that, be sure to check him out on Instagram and let him know we sent you. As always, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.